Thank you, Vera. The primary topic that we're going to be talking about today, possibly the only topic, is it relates to screenplay, what I call screenplay infringement, but it's really much broader than that. The issue is essentially someone, a studio or comes out with a motion picture, or a television network comes out with a program, and some poor screenplay writer or the writer of a novel, or a treatment or any kind of literary work claims that it infringes that work. That's the main topic. I'm sitting in the middle here today because I have to keep these guys from getting at each other's throats. Steve's going to be taking the plaintiff's side on this, and Jay's going to be taking the studio side to some extent. So I have to keep these guys under control. Let me start by giving you a few statistics. I think I might be the only person in the world that actually keeps statistics on this, and so now I'm going to give them to you. In 35 years since 1982, there have been 2 published opinions in the Ninth Circuit where the Ninth Circuit has deigned to allow one of these cases to survive a dispositive motion, summary judgment or a motion to dismiss. One in 1990 and one in 2002. 2002 was a case called Metcalf versus Bojko. They did allow that one to survive. It went to trial and was defeated at trial. I know that from personal experience because I'm the one that lost it. So 2 cases, 35 years. Since Metcalf versus Bojko, since that published opinion came out, by my calculation, and I think these statistics, most of them are fairly accurate, there have been 3 cases that I know of where a district court has allowed, or the Ninth Circuit has allowed, not the Ninth Circuit, they haven't allowed any of them, but where district courts have allowed this type of case to proceed beyond the dispositive motion stage. 3 of them. 43 that I know of have been rejected, and I'm sure that the number is really a lot higher than that. So it's very difficult to get this case past dispositive motion phase. Used to be motions for summary judgment. Now increasingly they're dumping them at the motion to dismiss stage. So let me start just by setting it up for you. I don't know, I'm sure there are people here, different familiarity with the issue, but let me start with Steve and ask you, what's the issue here, Steve? On what grounds are these cases being dismissed by district court and circuit court judges?
Thank you, Robert. So 90% of them are knocked out on the issue of substantial similarity. It's true that the judges deal with access a little bit, but it's mostly substantial similarity. And pretty much there is no way to win on the issue of substantial similarity unless the court applies what's called the selection and arrangement test. If they don't apply the selection and arrangement test, and of course none of the courts are right now, then the plaintiff always loses. And the reason is because what they do is they deconstruct the work into its separate elements, and as opposed to looking at the work as a whole. And when they deconstruct it and then into its separate elements, it's like shooting fish in a barrel at that point, because any separate element in any of these cases, if you look at it, can be found to be not protectable because of any number of reasons of elements being non-protectable, including that it's a scene, what's called a scene affair, which means that it's very common in that particular genre. It can be because it's a general plot which is not protectable. It could be because it's a character which is not protectable. And so as the courts go through the individual elements, they're able to, one by one, just knock them out, and then the plaintiff's never left with anything at the end of the day. So, for example, you see the court doing that, in particular Stephen Wilson, who cites to his own previous cases in support of his decisions. Judge Stephen Wilson has created now a body of law in the United States District Court by virtue of at least 2 cases that he decided against us in 2010, namely the Bernal versus NBC case and the Gable versus NBC and Bernal versus ABC. two cases that Judge Wilson decided on the same day in 2010. And then he's now using those two cases to create a further body of law, and he's just decided two more cases. The Abdullah versus Walt Disney Company, which should be in the materials, came out March 14th, 2016, and the other one being the New Girl case, which is
Counts versus Merriweather.
Counts versus Merriweather. Thank you. So basically what he does, and what the courts do in general, is they break it down into the individual similarities, and as opposed to looking at those similarities as a whole, they look at them individually. And once you break them into the individual elements, it's, as I mentioned, it's like shooting fish in the barrel. It's so easy to knock them out one by one as opposed to looking at them as a whole. If you apply the selection and arrangement test, which we've been advocating and we think is the test that's required by the United States Supreme Court, it's also the test that they use in every other type of case other than screenplay cases. What they do is in the selection and arrangement test, is they look at the totality of the particular elements. So if you've got 14 similar elements in 14 elements in one work, and then those same 14 elements substantially the same in another work, that's more than enough. I mean, if you do the statistics on this, to actually find 14 elements that are in one work that are identical or fairly similar in another work, it's probably 3 trillion to 1 that's going to occur independently or naturally. But that's not the analysis that gets done, and because of that, because of the failure to apply the selection and arrangement test, unless the United States Supreme Court requires that, which we've been trying, Cecil has been trying to get the United States Supreme Court to do, you'll see plaintiffs continue to lose ad infinitum, and that's why the statistics that Robert mentioned are, I'm sure, conservative.